20 illegal ingredients brands can't use in America. Bread laced with a cancer-causing chemical. Root beer flavored with a toxic oil. Candy sweetened with something that destroys your liver. And you've probably eaten at least one of these without ever knowing. These weren't sketchy back-alley products, they were on grocery store shelves, sold by brands you trusted. It took decades for science to catch up, and when it did, the FDA had no choice but to ban them. These are 20 illegal ingredients brands can no longer use in America. And some of them might still be in your kitchen right now. 20. Brominated vegetable oil, BVO. If you've ever grabbed a citrus-flavored soda and noticed how the color looks perfectly even from top to bottom, there's a reason for that. For decades, a chemical called brominated vegetable oil was the secret behind it. BVO is a vegetable oil modified with bromine, the same element found in flame retardants. It was added to fruit-flavored drinks to stop the citrus flavoring from floating to the top and separating. Without it, your Mountain Dew or Fanta would look like a lava lamp. For years, nobody questioned it. But scientists eventually discovered something alarming. Studies showed that BVO could build up in the body over time and damage the nervous system, thyroid, and other organs. Research conducted by the FDA and the National Institutes of Health confirmed the potential for serious adverse health effects in humans, including headaches, fatigue, and loss of muscle coordination. Countries like the UK, Japan, India, and the entire European Union had already banned it years earlier. But in America, it took until July 2024 for the FDA to finally revoke its authorization. The ban officially took effect on August 2, 2024. Companies were given 1 year to reformulate their products. Major brands like PepsiCo and Coca-Cola had already removed it from their recipes under public pressure, but smaller brands were still using it. So next time you pick up a fruity soda, check the label. And while you're at it, you should also be looking out for a certain food dye that the FDA just took down. 19. Red dye number 3. That takes us to red dye number 3, also called FD&C red number 3 or erythrocene. It's a bright synthetic color that food makers used for decades to make candy, frostings, cookies, snack cakes, maraschino cherries, and different beverages look more catchy. It added a vibrant cherry red color to the products without affecting the texture, taste, or nutrition. But there's a downside. Scientists decided to test this ingredient, and so they fed lab animals with high levels of this dye. It led to cancer in the male rats. Under the Delaney Clause of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which states that the FDA needs to ban additives that are shown to cause cancer in humans or animals. In January 2025, the FDA officially banned red number 3 from use in foods and ingested drugs because of these cancer concerns. Manufacturers now have until January 2027 to remove it from foods and January 2028 to reformulate any medicines that contain it. The good news? All your gummies, cakes, drinks, cereals, and other colorful treats can now use much safer alternatives, like natural colorings from beets or other plants. That way, products can keep their interesting look without taking any risks. 18. Safrole. If you drank root beer a long time ago and you drink it now, you might notice that they don't taste the same. The answer goes back to safrole, an ingredient that used to be popular. Safrole is the natural chemical found in the oil of the sassafras tree. For many decades, it was used as a flavoring in drinks, candies, teas, and especially root beer. That sweet, spicy aroma that every root beer offered actually came from sassafras oil, which contains a high amount of safrole. But in the late 1950s and 1960s, scientists started studying the compound more closely, and they couldn't believe what they found. They realized from animal studies that safrole could damage the liver and cause cancer in lab animals when consumed in high amounts. Because of those findings, the FDA quickly took action. In 1960, the FDA officially banned safrole and sassafras oil from being added to food and beverage. Any product with this compound was considered unsafe for consumption. This has also changed how root beer was made. Modern root beer no longer uses real sassafras oil. Instead, the companies use artificial flavorings or specially processed safrole-free extracts that mimic the original taste without the risky compound. So before you pick up a can of root beer, make sure it doesn't contain safrole. 17. Coumarin. And next we have coumarin, a naturally occurring compound that gives a sweet, vanilla-like aroma and flavor. In the past, food makers used it to enhance the taste of sweets, baked goods, and other treats because of its pleasant scent and flavor profile. It comes from plants such as tonka beans, and was once used like vanilla or cinnamon extract in flavorings. But scientists took a closer look at coumarin and realized just how dangerous it is. Studies showed that in high amounts, coumarin could damage the liver and cause other health issues in lab animals. Since it was so risky, the FDA banned the direct addition of coumarin to food in 1954. That means any food product with added coumarin is adulterated and illegal to sell in the US food supply. The ban doesn't mean you'll never taste the compound in some foods today. For instance, spices like cassia cinnamon usually contain small amounts of coumarin, and these aren't banned as long as they aren't added directly as an ingredient. But companies can't intentionally add pure coumarin or tonka bean extract to flavor their products under the FDA. Interestingly, this isn't the only sweetener that turned out to be a silent killer. 16. Cyclamate. Cyclamate is an artificial sweetener that once seemed like a dream for people who wanted the sweetness of sugar without the calories. It's about 30 times sweeter than regular sugar, dissolves easily in drinks and foods, and is used in everything from sugar-free sodas to diet desserts and candies. It helped large brands make low-calorie products more appealing because it masked the bitter aftertastes when mixed with other sweeteners. But there's a twist in its sweet story. In the late 1960s, scientists started studying whether it was safe or not. Some animal research revealed that when cyclamate was metabolized, it turned into a chemical that caused bladder tumors in the lab rats, especially at high doses. After these findings were released, the FDA decided in 1969 to 1970 to ban cyclamate completely from use in foods and beverages. That means brands in America can't add cyclamate or its common salts to products. But did you know that this ingredient is still approved and used in more than 100 other countries? Some sweeteners aren't what they seem like, but coloring ingredients might be just worse. 15. Nordihydroguairetic acid, NDGA. During World War II, the US government approved a compound called nordihydroguairetic acid, or NDGA, as a food preservative. Extracted from the creosote bush found in American and Mexican deserts, it was used throughout the 1950s as an antioxidant to prevent fats and butter from going rancid. At first, it seemed like a natural solution to food spoilage. But studies soon revealed a disturbing pattern. Animals fed NDGA developed severe kidney damage, including cystic kidneys. Further research linked it to liver toxicity and even liver failure in humans who consumed large amounts through herbal supplements made from the creosote bush. In 1968, the FDA removed NDGA from its list of generally recognized as safe compounds and banned it from being added to any food. Today, any food product containing added NDGA is considered adulterated and illegal to sell in the United States. The creosote bush is still used in some herbal traditions, but NDGA itself is strictly off-limits in the American food supply. And speaking of food additives that seemed harmless, the next entry involves a substance so dangerous it was directly linked to dozens of deaths. 14. Dimethylamylaminon. Another ingredient you don't want in your food is dimethylamylaminon. This is usually called DMA, and it used to be popular in dietary supplements which were meant for weight loss, energy boosts, and workout performance. Brands promoted it as a powerful stimulant that could help burn fat and give athletes a surge of energy, especially when it's paired with caffeine. The DMA acts as a vasoconstrictor, and this can place a dangerous strain on the heart. The FDA has connected the DMA intake to shortness of breath, arrhythmias, chest tightening, seizures, and even heart attacks or deaths. Because of this safety issue, FDA has ruled that products which contain DMA are illegal to market as dietary supplements in the United States. These are unsafe food additives, and all the companies received warning letters, have their products seized, or stop distributing them altogether. 13. Lead chromate. But if you happen to see lead chromate on a food label, don't eat it and instead, send a report to the authorities. Lead chromate is not allowed in any of the food in the US. In fact, the FDA doesn't permit lead in foods as an approved additive of colorant agent, and any detectable level makes the ingredient unsafe. The compound combines lead and chromate to create a bright yellow pigment that some dishonest producers have used illegally in spices like turmeric or cinnamon to make them look more brilliant and appealing. Lead is a potent neurotoxin with no safe exposure level, especially for children. The FDA is trying to reduce lead exposure in foods because this harms the brain and nervous system, stunt development and damage of organs. Because of these risks, any intentional use of lead chromate in food or as food color is illegal in the US. If the FDA detects it, the product will be recalled and then removed from the market. The FDA doesn't allow this ingredient, but there's one food preservative that they don't want to see in your foods. 12. Thiourea. Thiourea is a synthetic chemical that was once considered useful in the food industry as an antimicrobial preservative. In the past, it was used by orchards and food companies as a treatment. They dipped fruits like citrus in it to prevent mold and fungal growth during storage and transport. That way, they could prevent the microbes from spoiling the fruit before it reached stores. But scientists soon discovered a serious problem. Studies on animals showed that thiourea could cause liver damage and cancer in lab rats when consumed in certain amounts. That raised immediate red flags for regulators. Under the US food safety laws, any additive linked to cancer risks can't remain in the food supply. Because of those findings, the FDA banned thiourea from direct use in food. The rule is strict. If any food contains an added or detectable amount of thiourea, it is legally considered adulterated and cannot be sold in the United States. This decision completely removed the chemical from American food production. Manufacturers had to switch to safer preservation methods to protect fruits and other products from spoilage. 11. Metanyl yellow. Another dye you definitely don't want to have in your food is metanyl yellow. It's not even a food ingredient. It belongs to a group of chemicals called azo dyes, which are used to color products like textiles, paper, leather, plastics, and paints. But some dishonest food producers used it illegally in foods to create a bright yellow color. It has been found in products like turmeric powder, noodles, sweets, and snack foods because it is cheap and produces a very strong color, usually brighter than the approved food dyes. The problem? This chemical was never meant to be eaten. Studies have shown that metanyl yellow can break down in the body into compounds that might be toxic or potentially carcinogenic. Research on animals has linked it to damage in organs such as the liver and other tissues, along with irritation to the respiratory system and skin. So, it's illegal to use this as a food color additive in the United States. The FDA only allows specific certified dyes that have been proven safe at certain levels, and any food product found containing metanyl yellow would be considered illegal and unsafe for sale. Although the next one isn't directly an ingredient, it was used to grow foods, but they discovered it could also kill humans. 10. Diethyl pyrocarbonate, DEPC. In the mid-20th century, the beverage industry thought it had found the perfect preservative. Diethyl pyrocarbonate, or DEPC, was a synthetic chemical added to wine, beer, and fruit drinks to stop fermentation and prevent spoilage. It worked brilliantly, killing yeast and bacteria while supposedly breaking down into harmless byproducts. Winemakers and juice manufacturers loved it because it extended shelf life without changing the flavor. But then researchers made a chilling discovery. When DEPC reacted with ammonia naturally present in beverages, it formed urethane, a well-known carcinogen. That meant every bottle of wine or fruit juice treated with DEPC could be silently generating a cancer-causing compound inside the drink itself. Once this reaction was confirmed, the FDA acted swiftly. In 1972, DEPC was banned from all food and beverage use in the United States. Any food containing any added or detectable level of DEPC is considered adulterated and illegal to sell. Today, winemakers use alternative preservation methods like pasteurization and sterile filtration. But DEPC's story is a reminder that even chemicals that break down in food can leave something far worse behind. 9. Cinnamyl anthranilate. Next is cinnamyl anthranilate, an ingredient that was once used to give foods a sweet grape or cherry-like taste. For decades, manufacturers added it in small amounts to products like soft drinks, candies, chewing gum, baked goods, puddings, and ice cream. It was also used in perfumes and soaps because of its pleasant fruity scent. At first, it seemed like just another harmless flavor enhancer. But as food safety research improved, regulators started looking more closely at many synthetic additives used in the past. Over time, scientists raised concerns about the safety of certain flavoring chemicals, and cinnamyl anthranilate became one of them. Because of those concerns, regulators decided it should no longer be used in food. In 1985, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration officially prohibited cinnamyl anthranilate from being added to food. Any food that contains this chemical is considered adulterated and illegal to sell in the United States. 8. Dulcin. Dulcin was once promoted as a revolutionary artificial sweetener. Discovered in the late 1800s, it quickly became popular because it was about 250 times sweeter than regular sugar and didn't have the bitter aftertaste that early sweeteners like saccharin sometimes had. Food manufacturers used it for sugar-free foods, beverages, and products designed for people with diabetes who needed alternatives to sugar. At first, Dulcin seemed like the perfect solution for low-calorie sweetness. But as researchers studied it more closely, serious concerns began to appear. Animal experiments showed signs of chronic toxicity, including possible damage to organs and links to cancer. That's when health authorities started to reconsider whether the sweetener should be used in food at all. Because of these risks, U.S. regulators stepped in. In 1950, the FDA officially banned Dulcin and declared any food containing it will be illegal to sell in the United States. So, even if the chemical was sweet, it wasn't safe to eat. 7. Cobalt salts. And then we have cobalt salts, which were once used in beer. In the 1950s and early 1960s, some breweries added tiny amounts of cobalt compounds to their drinks to stabilize the foam, helping beer keep a thick, lasting head after it was poured. At the time, it seemed like a clever trick to make beer look better in the glass. But in the early 1960s, doctors began noticing a strange pattern. Heavy beer drinkers in several cities developed a rare heart condition called cardiomyopathy, which weakens the heart muscle. Investigations later linked the illness to beer that contained cobalt salts. In some cases, the condition proved fatal, and reports connected the additive to dozens of deaths. Once the connection became clear, regulators moved quickly. In 1966, the FDA banned cobalt salts from being added to any human food, including beer. Today, cobalt still exists in nature and in vitamin B12, but adding it directly to food is illegal. 6. Agein. Another illegal ingredient was agein, a common chemical used in the baking industry to bleach and improve flour. The substance is actually nitrogen trichloride, and for many years, mills exposed flour to this gas to make it whiter and to speed up the aging process. This allowed bakers to produce bread faster and create loaves that were softer, lighter, and more visually appealing. For a long time, it was considered harmless and became widely used. In fact, by the late 1940s, a large portion of white flour in the United States had been treated with agein. But scientists started studying its effects and they found out that animals fed bread made with agein-treated flour developed serious nervous system problems, including seizures and abnormal behavior. Further investigation revealed that a toxic byproduct formed during the treatment process, affecting the brain and nervous system. So, the FDA banned the use of agein in flour in 1949, making it illegal to use in food production. But the next ingredient was found to be toxic in 1968, and immediately banned. 5. Calamus oil. Calamus oil comes from the root of a plant called Acorns calamus, sometimes known as sweet flag. For many years, extracts and oils from this plant were used as a flavoring ingredient in foods and beverages. It added a strong, spicy sweet taste and was used in herbal products, liqueurs, and traditional remedies. But scientists discovered a serious issue. Calamus oil naturally contains a chemical called beta-acerone, raising major health concerns. Studies found that this compound could be toxic and carcinogenic, meaning it might increase the risk of cancer in lab animals. Once regulators understood the risk, the FDA banned calamus and its derivatives from being added to food. So, if any food adds calamus oil or extract, it is illegal to sell in the United States. Calamus oil still exists in some herbal traditions and fragrances, but definitely not in food. 4. Styrene. You might not believe this, but there's one ingredient that was actually used for plastic products. It was also used in tiny amounts as a synthetic flavoring agent in foods. In the past, manufacturers used it to help create flavor notes in products like ice cream, baked goods, chewing gum, and candies. The amount added was very small, but it was still a food additive. Over time, regulators started reviewing a group of synthetic flavoring chemicals used in food production. They found out that certain additives in this group could cause cancer in lab animals, and that raised concerns among scientists. So in 2018, the FDA changed its regulations and removed styrene from the list of approved food flavoring substances. Companies can no longer use it as a flavor additive, although it is still used to manufacture plastics. 3. Benzophenone. Another artificial flavoring substance that was once used in very small amounts in foods was benzophenone. Manufacturers used it to help create certain flavor notes in products like candies, baked goods, chewing gum, and ice cream. The flavoring chemicals are often grouped together on ingredient lists under a label like artificial flavors, so you might not even know if your food has it. For years, its use went mostly unnoticed. But scientists later began studying the safety of several synthetic flavoring chemicals, including benzophenone. Some laboratory studies found that high exposure to the compound could cause cancer in animals, which raised concerns among health researchers and consumer safety groups. Under the Delaney Clause, a U.S. food safety rule, any additive shown to cause cancer in humans or animals cannot remain approved for use in food. So, this ingredient was banned by the FDA in 2018. 2. Ethyl acrylate. Next is ethyl acrylate, a synthetic chemical that was once added to foods as a flavoring agent to give products a slight fruity or sweet note. Food manufacturers used it in chewing gums, baked goods, and candies because it enhanced the flavor in ways regular sugar or natural extracts couldn't. It also appears naturally in a few foods like pineapple and certain cheeses, although at much lower levels than when it was added purposefully. Even though manufacturers used it in small amounts, ethyl acrylate could cause tumors in the stomach lining of lab rats. So, the FDA reviewed its status under the Delaney Clause. By 2018, the FDA removed it from the list of approved flavoring substances in food. 1. P4000. And finally, the number one spot goes to an ingredient so powerful it makes every other sweetener on this list look like a joke. P4000, officially known as 5-nitro-2-N-proparxyaniline, is a synthetic chemical that is approximately 4,000 times sweeter than sugar. That's not a typo, 4,000 times. It was developed as an artificial sweetener and seemed like the ultimate replacement for sugar. Just a microscopic amount could sweeten an entire batch of food. Manufacturers saw massive potential. Imagine needing almost no sweetener to make an entire product taste sweet. But there was a massive problem. When scientists tested P4000 on laboratory animals, the results were devastating. The compound showed significant toxicity, causing serious harm even in relatively small doses. The risks were so severe that regulators didn't wait for more studies. In 1950, the FDA banned P4000 outright. Any food containing any added or detectable level of this compound is considered adulterated and illegal. It was one of the earliest sweeteners the FDA ever prohibited, and it remains banned to this day. The lesson? Just because something tastes sweet doesn't mean it's safe. And the FDA learned that lesson the hard way over and over again, across every ingredient on this list. Here's what should keep you up at night. Every single ingredient on this list was once considered safe. Some of them were on shelves for decades before anyone raised a flag, so the real question isn't which of these you've eaten, it's what's in your food right now that hasn't been caught yet. Tell us in the comments which one surprised you.